The New Colossus. By Emma Lazarus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea washed, he new Colossus. By Emma Lazarus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea washed, sunset gates shall stand. A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. The New Colossus is a sonnet by American poet Emma Lazarus, 1849–1887. She wrote the poem in 1883 to raise money for the construction of a pedestal for the Statue of Liberty, Liberty enlightening the world. 2. In 1903, the poem was cast onto a bronze plaque and mounted inside the pedestal's lower level. Emma Lazarus, July 22, 1849 to November 19, 1887, was an American author of poetry, prose, and translations, as well as an activist for Jewish and Georgist causes. She is remembered for writing the sonnet, The New Colossus, which was inspired by the Statue of Liberty, in 1883. 1. Its lines appear inscribed on a bronze plaque, installed in 1903, 2. On the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. 3. Lazarus was involved in aiding refugees to New York who had fled anti-Semitic pogrom in Eastern Europe, and she saw a way to express her empathy for these refugees in terms of the statue. 4. The last lines of the sonnet were set to music by Irving Berlin as the song, Give Me Your Tired, Your Poor, for the 1949 musical Miss Liberty, which was based on the sculpting of the Statue of Liberty, Liberty enlightening the world. The latter part of the sonnet was also set by Lee Hoybe in his song, The Lady of the Harbor, written in 1985 as part of his song cycle, Three Women. Lazarus was also the author of poems and translations New York, 1867, Admetus, and other poems 1871, Allied, an episode of Goethe's Life Philadelphia, 1874 Poems and Ballads of Heine, New York, 1881 Poems, 2 vols. Narrative, lyric and dramatic, as well as Jewish poems and translations. This poem was written as a donation to an auction of art and literary works 3 conducted by the Art Loan Fund exhibition in aid of the Bartholdi Pedestal Fund for the Statue of Liberty, to raise money for the pedestal's construction. 4. Lazarus's contribution was solicited by fundraiser William Maxwell Evarts. Initially, she refused, but writer Constance Cary Harrison convinced her that the statue would be of great significance to immigrants sailing into the harbor. 5. Lazarus was involved in aiding Jewish refugees to New York who had fled anti-Semitic pogroms in Eastern Europe, and she saw a way to express her empathy for these refugees in terms of the statue. 6. The New Colossus was the first entry read at the exhibit's opening on November 2, 1883. It remained associated with the exhibit through a published catalog until the exhibit closed after the pedestal was fully funded in August 1885, 7-8, but was forgotten and played no role at the opening of the statue in 1886. It was, however, published in Joseph Pulitzer's New York World as well as the New York Times during this time period. 9. In 1901, Lazarus's friend Georgina Schuyler began an effort to memorialize Lazarus and her poem, which succeeded in 1903 when a plaque bearing the text of the poem was put on the inner wall of the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. 4. On the plaque hanging inside the Statue of Liberty, the line, Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, is missing the comma. 10. The plaque also describes itself as an engraving, it is actually a casting. Citation needed. The original manuscript is held by the American Jewish Historical Society. The poem is a Petrarchan sonnet. 13. The title of the poem and the first 2 lines reference the Greek Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a famously gigantic sculpture that stood beside or straddled the entrance to the harbor of the island of Rhodes in the 3rd century BC. In the poem, Lazarus contrasts that ancient symbol of grandeur and empire, the brazen giant of Greek fame, with a new Colossus, the Statue of Liberty, a female embodiment of commanding, maternal strength, mother of exiles. 13-14. The sea-washed, sunset gates are the mouths of the Hudson and East Rivers to the west of Brooklyn. The imprisoned lightning refers to the electric light in the torch, then a novelty. The air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame refers to New York Harbor between New York City and Brooklyn, which were separate cities at the time the poem was written, before being consolidated as boroughs of the city of Greater New York in 1898. 14. The huddled masses refers to the large numbers of immigrants arriving in the United States in the 1880s, particularly through the port of New York. 15. Lazarus was an activist and advocate for Jewish refugees fleeing persecution in Imperial Russia. 16. Paul Auster wrote that Bartholdi's gigantic effigy was originally intended as a monument to the principles of international republicanism, but the new Colossus reinvented the statue's purpose, turning liberty into a welcoming mother, a symbol of hope to the outcasts and downtrodden of the world. 17. John T. Cunningham wrote that the Statue of Liberty was not conceived and sculpted as a symbol of immigration, but it quickly became so as immigrant ships passed under the torch and the shining face, heading toward Ellis Island. However, it was Lazarus's poem that permanently stamped on Miss Liberty the role of unofficial greeter of incoming immigrants. 18. The poem was quoted in John F. Kennedy's book A Nation of Immigrants 1958. 19. In 2019, during the Trump administration, Ken Cuccinelli, whom Trump appointed as acting director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, revised a line from the poem in support of the administration's public charge rule to reject applicants for visas or green cards on the basis of income and education. Cuccinelli added the caveat, "Give me your tired and your poor who can stand on their own 2 feet, and who will not become a public charge," later suggested that the huddled masses were European, and downplayed the poem as it was not actually part of the original Statue of Liberty. Cuccinelli's remark prompted criticism. 2021-22, the Trump administration rule was later blocked by a federal appeals court. 23. The new Colossus. Summary. The speaker first describes what the new Colossus will not be like, the giant bronze statue of the sun god Helios in ancient Rhodes. The Colossus of Rhodes was constructed to commemorate a military victory and was thought to stand with its legs on either side of a harbor. The speaker then moves from ancient Greece to America, describing the new statue's position on America's eastern shoreline. The statue looks like a powerful woman and holds a torch that's lit through the modern wonders of electricity. She is depicted as a motherly figure who welcomes immigrants to America. She does so through the guiding light of her torch and her gentle yet powerful gaze upon New York Harbor, which is sandwiched between New York City and Brooklyn, which were still separate cities when the poem was written. The poem then gives the statue herself a voice. She speaks directly to the nations of Europe, telling them she wants no part of their showy displays of power. Though she is a silent statue, the speaker suggests that her symbolic message is clear. She goes on to command the ancient European nations to send its impoverished citizens, the thousands who long for freedom, to America. These people have been forgotten and rejected in their overly populated countries with limited resources. Once again, she commands the ancient nations to send her those who have been exiled and battered by the storms of misfortune. She beckons these immigrants toward her with her torch, which metaphorically illuminates the entryway to America and all the opportunities it offers. The new Colossus. Themes. Theme: American immigration. American immigration. The new Colossus compares the Statue of Liberty to an ancient Greek statue, the Colossus of Rhodes. While the ancient statue served as a warning to potential enemies, the new statue's name, torch, and position on the eastern shore of the United States all signal her status as a protector of exiles. Her protection extends both to the exiles who founded the United States, and to refugees hoping to make America their new home. When the speaker imagines the statue's voice, the statue speaks directly to the ancient lands of Europe and claims its forgotten and rejected ones as her own. Each of these features contributes to the poem's presentation of the Statue of Liberty as a symbol of welcome, and to the poem's broader message to embrace foreigners with open arms. Through its description of two statues' relationships to the land on which they stand, the poem offers contrasting ways of relating to one's homeland and to foreigners. The first involves the brazen giant, or Colossus of Rhodes, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It was constructed to commemorate a military victory, and its conquering limbs were believed to have straddled a harbor. All foreign ships would have had to pass beneath its brazen or bronze legs and, in so doing, to contemplate the demise of the defeated soldiers from whose abandoned weapons the statue was made. This threatening stance served as a warning to approaching sailors and potential invaders. In contrast, the new Colossus stands firmly at the sea-washed, sunset gates of America. This lyrical image of America's eastern shore, the shore that faces Europe across the Atlantic Ocean, connotes a sense of openness to new visitors. This sense of openness is confirmed in lines 4 to 8, in which the statue is called Mother of Exiles, and her torch is described as a beacon. The Statue of Liberty's French sculptor included a torch to symbolize reason and liberty enlightening the world. In the poem, though, the torch instead glows for the same reason a lighthouse does, to safely guide travelers home. It is a beacon, or sign of worldwide welcome, to the thousands of immigrants arriving in New York. The statue's role as patron of immigrants is solidified when the sonnet's sestet, or final 6 lines, puts the New World's guardian in direct conversation with the ancient lands of Europe from which they emigrate. The statue rejects the storied pomp through which European empires, such as those of ancient Greece, were founded and maintained. The Colossus of Rhodes was built from the abandoned bronze weapons of the defeated army of Cyprus. As such, it is a pompous display of power that highlights the victor's story but obscures the suffering of the conquered people. The new Colossus commands the old lands to send its marginalized people, the huddled masses, to her. She will ensure that those who are homeless and long to breathe free will find refuge. The statue's torch returns in the final line as a lamp that illuminates the golden door of American opportunity. This golden promise of the Statue of Liberty, then, offers a tantalizing alternative to all that the ancient Colossus of Rhodes represented. The speaker hopes that the maternal statue and her promise of radical hospitality will become a symbol for America itself. In other words, the poem presents the Statue of Liberty as both part of America and representative of its values, and in so doing argues that America should be defined by its willingness to both accept immigrants and actively welcome them. See where this theme is active in the poem. Theme: the promise of freedom. The promise of freedom. Since this poem was written to support a fundraiser for the Statue of Liberty's pedestal, the poem implicitly invites readers to compare what the poem does say about the historical statue to what it does not say. Although the poem doesn't use the statue's formal name, Liberty Enlightening the World, it is deeply concerned with the statue's understood connection to liberty and freedom. It suggests that the expansion of powerful ancient European empires, which were founded on principles of class and military power, deprived many people of personal and political liberty, and then has the statue voice a promise to restore that fundamental human right. The new Colossus represents an idealistic vision of nationhood in which a government's power is used not to conquer, but to honor all people's inherent dignity and right to liberty. The octave, or opening 8 lines of the sonnet, describes the political conditions under which freedom is either offered to all or restricted to some. It pits ancient structures of oppression against a new, American commitment to welcoming exiles. The Colossus of Rhodes, an ancient statue built after a military victory, is described as having conquering limbs. This majestic description thinly veils the consequences of war, in which the conqueror flourishes while the conquered are disenfranchised. The poem criticizes this political system by replacing this threatening statue with a welcoming yet mighty statue at America's eastern shoreline, the shoreline that faces Europe across the Atlantic. In naming the new statue, the speaker does not reach outside the poem for its formal, historical title, Liberty Enlightening the World. The statue's ties to Libertas, the Roman goddess of freedom, are thus obscured. In place of a classical image of liberty as political independence, the poem instead renames the statue, Mother of Exiles. This title, along with the torch the statue raises to offer worldwide welcome to refugees, make this statue, and the nation on whose shore it stands, a guardian of all who wish to seek freedom in a new home. More broadly, the poem positions the statue as a new Colossus, which suggests that it is replacing the values of that old Colossus of Rhodes, and implies that these new values that America offers will replace the old militaristic and despotic forces of Europe. However, when the word free finally appears in line 11, the immigrants called toward America's shores don't yet have the liberty they long for. Instead, the word is included as part of a command from the new Colossus that the ancient European lands release the forgotten people whose individual dreams have been crushed under the burden of oppression. They are the ones longing to breathe free, for their human rights have been degraded such that they are deemed refuse. The maternal statue claims these exiles as her own and promises to shepherd them through the golden door of opportunity. The implication is that, on American land, human rights are respected, and all are given the resources necessary to flourish. When the poem ends, though, the statue is left awaiting the refugees' arrival. Her promise of freedom remains unmet. The new Colossus thus presents freedom as a worthy ideal that has yet to be achieved in the world outside the poem. See where this theme is active in the poem. Theme: patriarchal values versus maternal virtues. Patriarchal values versus maternal virtues. The poem stages a contrast between stereotypical masculine and feminine values, but then blurs the line between them. It describes the Colossus of Rhodes in terms of strength in battle, something typically associated with masculinity, and claims that the new Colossus will be different. It then describes the new Colossus in terms of both commanding strength and maternal mildness. While the ancient statue offered a display of military dominance and a warning to powerful enemies, the new statue is both mighty and mild in her message of motherly welcome. This blended use of gendered attributes to describe the new statue makes it clear that hospitality should not be seen as some kind of female-specific weakness, but rather as a strength of American society. In other words, the poem suggests that America needs both the power once associated with an all-male military and government, and the mild spirit of welcome once associated solely with women. The speaker first describes what the new Colossus will not be like: the warlike and hyper-masculine Colossus of Rhodes, a statue of the Greek Titan sun god, Helios. This ancient statue was brazen in two ways: it symbolized arrogance and strength, and it was built by melting down and reforging enemies' bronze. Weapons. The reference to the Colossus of Rhodes' conquering limbs, in line 2 recalls the statue's purpose: to celebrate a military victory against Cyprus. These displays of physical and martial strength were understood to typify masculine virtues valued by a patriarchal society, in which positions of power are held by men, and power is used to dominate others, both foreign and domestic. Lines 4 to 7 then describe what the new Colossus will be like: a mild and mighty mother. Although the speaker first promises that this new statue will not be like the Colossus of Rhodes, the next lines show that she won't be its polar opposite, either. In place of the powerful male god, the new Colossus is a mighty woman. If the ancient statue was built partly to warn off potential invaders, the new Colossus understands her role as guardian differently. She is a mother of exiles, holding a torch as a glowing sign of worldwide welcome. If the ancient statue's enormous legs straddled a harbor in the posture of a conqueror, the new statue can command a harbor equally well through her mild eyes. It becomes clear, here, that hospitality is not a gendered weakness, but a societal strength. In the poem's final 6 lines, signs of feminine mildness continue to merge with masculine boldness. Though the statue is imagined crying out with silent lips, the message she silently conveys is nonetheless powerful and universally understood. Setting up one more contrast between the male and female statues, the new Colossus invites the ancient lands to keep their displays of power and instead entrust the powerless to her care. She will protect the poor and homeless and guide them toward the golden door of opportunity. She, in other words, will be a defender of the world's weakest people and offer them the resources needed to become strong. The statue's gendered attributes offer a new kind of strength that, even in its pointedly peaceful purpose, rivals that of the ancient, male-dominated world and, the poem implies, will eventually replace it. See where this theme is active in the poem. The new Colossus, speaker. The speaker of The New Colossus is an American with a distinct vision for America's future and role on the world stage. The speaker refers to the shores of New York as our gates, describing its harbor and new statue in loving detail. This is no objective voice. The way the speaker describes the statue has political overtones. In lines 1 and 2, the speaker explicitly states that the new statue's purpose is different from that of an ancient colossus that celebrated a military victory. In lines 4 through 8, the speaker gives the statue the name, Mother of Exiles, and describes the statue's torch as a light guiding exiles toward their new home. The speaker clearly privileges compassion and hospitality over conquering might. In the second stanza, the speaker seemingly introduces a second voice, that of the statue herself. The statue, too, presents herself as a motherly figure waiting to welcome immigrants to America. The direct correspondence between these two voices makes it apparent that the speaker has put words in the statue's mouth. The voice of an inanimate statue becomes one strategy among many for the speaker to advocate for radical hospitality for immigrants. In other words, one can reasonably argue that the speaker in both stanzas of the poem remains essentially the same. The speaker's idealism and strident confidence in the American dream puts some distance between the poem's speaker and its author. Although Emma Lazarus was actively involved in immigration activism, she also became disillusioned with some of the organizations she supported. Born into a wealthy Jewish family, Lazarus used her resources to help found the Hebrew Technical Institute, which provided vocational training to Jewish immigrants. She also volunteered with the Hebrew Emigrant Aid Society's Employment Bureau. Later, however, she lost faith in this effort, and instead advocated for the creation of a Jewish homeland. Given this complicated history, perhaps the poem's speaker might be said to voice Lazarus's early and idealistic vision of what America could be, and to either proceed or put aside her disappointment in what she came to see as its failings. The New Colossus, setting. In line 3 of The New Colossus, it becomes clear that the poem's setting is the precise location where the Statue of Liberty stands, Liberty Island in New York Harbor. The poem describes, here, as the point where the statue stands at America's eastern shore, or Sunset Gates. The poem also references how the statue looks outward toward Twin Cities, which have been interpreted as either New York and Brooklyn or New York and Jersey City. Either way, the setting does not shift very far. Just as the poem makes the Statue of Liberty representative of America and its inhabitants' values, the setting might also be broadened to include the country as a whole. The statue may stand at one particular harbor, but as the guardian of a golden door, it is one part of a larger entity, an entire nation founded on the ideals of liberty, justice, and opportunity for all. Literary and historical context of The New Colossus. Literary context. As citizens of a new country only recently founded, many 19th century American writers sought to create a distinctly American literature. This project spans from James Fenimore Cooper's celebrations of rugged frontier life to the American individualism of Walt Whitman's poetry. Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus, both participates in this work and pushes against it. The New Colossus offers a vision of what America could be that involves rejecting ancient European ideas of military valor and class hierarchy, but that also involves welcoming exiles from Europe and other lands. In other words, this poem both embraces a unique American identity and insists that this identity encompasses many cultures. The poem's political concerns place it in the second half of Emma Lazarus's career, during which time her activism intertwined with her literary activity. Though born into a wealthy Jewish family, Lazarus was uninterested in her own heritage until she read George Eliot's novel Daniel Deronda. Eliot's nuanced exploration of Jewish identity precipitated Lazarus's own probing treatment of the theme in much of her later work. Lazarus scholar Max Kavich suggests that, in The New Colossus, the statue's lamp is a veiled reference to a quote from Daniel Deronda's Mordecai. Mordecai, who advocates for the creation of a Jewish homeland, declares that Israel's heritage beats in the pulses of the multitudes and must be made visible. Let the torch of visible community be lit. In Lazarus's poem, the specificity of Eliot's image is broadened to a worldwide appeal. This lamp lights the way not just for Jews, but for all exiles. The poem shares its sense of humanity's interconnected nature with Walt Whitman's poem, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, which describes the speaker's sense of connection to men and women of a generation or ever so many generations hence. The poem may also have been influenced by Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ozymandias, a famous sonnet written about a statue earlier in the 19th century. The New Colossus has influenced many later poets, particularly those who use poetry to make political statements. However, not all later poets saw The New Colossus in a complementary way. Poets such as Claude McKay implicitly criticize its starry-eyed idealism by undercutting ideas of American greatness or exceptionalism. Sylvia Plath's The Colossus obliquely references the poem in a different way, by comparing another contemporary figure, the speaker's father, to the Colossus of Rhodes. In that poem, the emphasis is on the irreparably broken state of the ancient statue, rather than its martial glory astride the harbor. Historical context. The New Colossus was written during a major wave of American immigration, spanning roughly from 1880 to 1920. Though many of these immigrants did successfully make a new home for themselves in America during this era, doing so was not easy. The boom in U.S. industrialization meant that more jobs existed than ever before. As thousands arrived seeking these opportunities, however, many Americans saw the newcomers as unwelcome competition. In addition to the growing anti-immigrant sentiment, immigration became further restricted at the federal level. Emma Lazarus penned The New Colossus just 1 year after the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 limited the immigration of Chinese laborers. Lazarus herself concentrated her efforts on the plight of the Jewish refugees, who were fleeing anti-Semitic violence across Europe and particularly in Russia. She wrote a defense of these Russian Jewish immigrants for the Century magazine, along with a series of articles from 1882 to 1883 called An epistle to the Hebrews, in which she argued that Jews must receive a robust education and began to advocate for the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. During this same period, she wrote, The New Colossus, which describes the Statue of Liberty beckoning refugees toward U.S. shores. If the cracks had already begun to show in an idealistic image of America as welcoming mother, as the anti-immigrant sentiment of the time would seem to suggest, nonetheless Lazarus's poem tried to restore it. Lines 1-4. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame. With conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea washed, sunset gates shall stand. A mighty woman with a torch, whose flame. As stated earlier, the speaker of the poem, presumably Lazarus, compares the Statue of Liberty to the Colossus. She says that unlike the giant statue the Greeks made, America's statue will be of a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning. Also in these lines, she stresses that the Statue of Liberty will be welcoming, whereas the Colossus was meant to intimidate those who reached Greece's shores. In addition, Lazarus personifies the statue, giving her the ability to welcome and command. Lines 5-8. Is the imprisoned lightning, and her name. Mother of exiles. From her beacon hand. Glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command. The air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. In lines 5 and 6, Lazarus creates a new name for the Statue of Liberty, and her name, Mother of Exiles. Since an exile is someone who is forced to leave their homeland, Lazarus is explaining that Lady Liberty will not only welcome those exiles, but she will also be mother-like to them, comforting and supporting them as every good mother does. She extends this thought into the next line, stating that the hand holding the torch glows worldwide welcome. In other words, her torch is lighting the way for all to see. At the end of line 7, Lazarus writes, her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. There has been much discussion behind this. Many people believe the twin cities the statue is commanding are New York City and Brooklyn, but others believe the cities could be New York City and Jersey City, New York's neighbor across the river. Lines 9-14. The last 6 lines of the poem are the most famous, and in these lines, the Statue of Liberty is talking, with silent lips. She says, "Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp," cries she. "With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." In these lines, the new Colossus is telling the world to give her all of the people who are longing for freedom, regardless of how they are, tired or poor, it makes no difference. She has lifted her light beside the door to let them all in. Historical context. Emma Lazarus wrote The New Colossus in 1883, but she did not live to see it engraved on the Statue of Liberty in 1903. Lazarus was a proponent of immigration, and this poem, her most famous, is a testament to her beliefs on refugees and immigrants. While it was not France's intention for the Statue of Liberty to become a symbol of welcoming immigrants to a new land, the number of immigrants pouring into Ellis Island put a change to that. The statue was often one of the first sights they saw as they entered the harbor. Today, the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of freedom and the pursuit of happiness, and while Lazarus did not live a very long life, her poem was withstood the test of time and remains one of the most significant works in American poetry. According to some, Emma Lazarus was the first American to make any sense of this statue, being a gift from the country of France. Her traditional sonnet form seemed to spark recognition of the statue's primary role, a worldwide welcome to those seeking sanctuary. Immigrants fleeing to America would see the torch-bearing giant as they approached New York, and word quickly spread around the globe that here was no ordinary lady but a mother of exiles offering a new life. Emma Lazarus, woman, Jew and New Yorker, beautifully encapsulated the feelings of a nation in 14 lines. There's no doubt it still resonates. Her sonnet stands proud. This poem is still very relevant in these fragile times. Emma Lazarus. Analysis. The New Colossus is a poem full of contrasts. Images of land, sea, fire, water, light, dark, freedom, imprisonment can be found within this short sonnet. But perhaps, as the poem's title points out, the most important contrast in Lazarus' poem is between old and new, specifically the old Colossus and the new one, and, by extension, the old world with the new world of America. "Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp," cries the new Colossus. The ancient lands of Europe can keep their history. America, the new land of the free, offers a new start for anybody in search of one. And the gender switch is significant. The conquering male Colossus of Rhodes, which was erected in order to strike fear into any invading army or fleet that thought it might try to take on the might of the Greek Empire, has been replaced by the female, motherly Statue of Liberty which welcomes those coming to American shores in search of a better life. Summary. The poem opens with a contrast. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, lines